showing you a way to make what I call path printing. That's a method that I saw first by Piotr Wozniowski, who makes a lot of excellent elements out of clay by defining path and defining the corresponding printing path and G-code in Grasshopper and Rhino. So this looks a little bit like this, where you have a flat curve which is printed a certain number of times, one or over each other. This gives excellent pattern, excellent results, and I will now try to show you how you can realize this in Grasshopper and in Rhino. Grasshopper procedure works. First, you start with creating a planar curve on an XY plane with the start and the end of the curve being near one of each other. Then you link the curve to your grasshopper switch with the curve component. And the first thing that I do, as this is in the XYZ plane, I just lift it a little bit up so that the nozzle doesn't start on the printing plate. So I use the command move and I define a vector which has the components 0, 0, and then 0.6 with the Z component. And this vector I'm using to make a vector move 0.6 above the printing plate. So this is now my first curve, and I will use this curve to multiply it a certain number of times that you can define by a slider. And I take this curve and I will move it up always 1 millimeter, because that's what I have chosen as layer height. So therefore I define again an XYZ vector, whereas the X component 0, the Y component 0, and the Z component 1. This is so my raising vector, and I make a multiplication of this vector from 0, starting curve, to up to the number of copies that I want to make. Therefore, I define here a series which starts with 0, which will be my starting line here. And then I have a step of 1, because it's an integer incrementation. And the count, that's the number of copies that I want to make. So now I have here my increasing vector, I have here my series, and then I multiply this vector with the series, and then I make a move. I make a move with my little bit raised curve with the 14 numbers, so which starts from 0 up to 13. You have the count here, 14, but you have a series, as you see, that goes from 0 to 13. So I have now 14 copies of my initial curve, which will I now need to blend always the curve with the next one. So the blending will be done with the blend curve, where you have a curve A and a curve B. So now what we do, we create two lists of the defined curves. One list that starts with 0 and goes up to 12, so this will be the first 13. So therefore I take my geometry, put it in the list, and here is the second list. Now I take this list and then I take off, I cull index the first one. So now these are the curves that start not with the first, but with the second up to the 14th curve. And here I do the same, but I do not take away the first one, but the last one. So to define the last one, I take my number of layers I take my number of layers here, which I've defined here, and I subtract 1, and this one, so I cull, in fact, the last one. If you see here, you start with the 0 and you go up to 13, and here, when we add the preview, you see you start with the second one and go up to the last one. And now I do what I call the blend, and then I blend the first set of curves with the second one, which then gives you, as you see here, the blending of one or the other. What you can do, you can define on the blend curve how this blending will done. If you choose position, he creates straight lines. If you check the continuity, he looks on the tangent. Or what I mostly switch is working with curvature, which gives in my eyes, the most natural transition between the curves. So now I have 14 initial curves and 13 blending arcs. Now I will need to put these together. So therefore I use the command weave, where I take initially the 14 first curves that I initially created, these ones. Okay. And on the second one, I choose my blending curves, these ones, which gives me then the weave. It takes the one curve of A and then one of B and then one of A and then one of B, which makes then a complete round in one set for Rhino, just that it is one open curve, because if you see here, these are 27 defined curves, but they are not put together. Therefore, we have to use the join curves command from the weaves. And here you see the output is clearly one locally defined curve, which you take over here. And if you want to see how it will looks like, you just put this into a pipe command, where you will see how your printout will be. And now the next part will be to define this in Grasshopper, just in order to create a unique printing. So, and this will be done by the method described in the book Advanced 3D Printing with Grasshopper, which will I do in one of the next videos.